Never mind.
We got a good plan B.
Never mind, we're all good now.
Okay, good. And we have a quorum, so.
We do. We have
All
to
right.
have-
Good morning. We'll call our June meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. We can't do this presentation
Yeah, we
yet?
can.
Oh,
It's ready.
oh, okay. Then we do have an item from the chairman. That's presentation of customer satisfaction survey.
Institute, there we go. I've actually been conducting surveys for the city since 2004, so it's quite a long time. And we've been doing a lot of research really with Embark since the very beginning. So it's great to be here tonight, or today. I'm going to walk you through the results of our most recent customer survey. This year we actually surveyed folks who are on the streetcar, on the buses here in Oklahoma City, as well as buses in Norman. So one of the things that you'll see a little differently is we're going to actually have some comparisons of the results from all three of the different systems. ETC, we're actually based in Kansas City, but these days we have actually offices all over the world. So we've actually added Addis Ababa in Ethiopia last year as a client, so they're actually our largest city in the world that we do surveys for. And for those of you who are on the council or familiar with the work we do for the city, we conduct an annual survey for the city council to get similar input from residents about the quality of service delivery for the city of Oklahoma City. So our firm, if you're not familiar with us, we're actually the leading firm when it comes to public transportation research. We've actually worked with 27, and there's the slides. I'm actually talking ahead of myself, so that's great. So anyway, we'll see, there we go. We've actually done work for 27 of the 35 largest transit systems in the United States. So I'm going to share with you today some of our new national benchmarking data. We actually just put it together the last few months. I think you'll be very pleased with some of the things that you see there. So as far as, let's see, here we go. As far as today's presentation, I'm going to walk you through really 4 key areas. One of the reasons you do this survey each year is to really understand who's using the system. So I'm going to walk you through the characteristics of the 3 systems I mentioned before. Then I'm going to share with you satisfaction and how it's changed and what's changed in some of the key areas. Then I'll walk you through some opportunities for improvement where you can potentially do better. And then there were a few other issues that we looked at on the survey. And this has a, there we go. And let me start off with the purpose and the methodology for the survey. And I'm having just a slight delay here for some reason. Oh, there we go. Are you going to do it? No wonder. So that makes more sense. So we'll do this as, yeah, is that working? Let me pull it back. How's that? Is that better if does that help at all? It sounds loud behind me, but if I can, or maybe put it, I'm a little, there we go. Does that help if I bend over a little bit? Does that help? Maybe I'll just squat down. Yeah, I know Jason's the same way. So anyway, I'll squat down here a little bit. Does that help if I'm a little lower? So it's very good. So anyway, if you missed all that introduction, I'm Chris Tatham with ETC Institute, and I'm here to share the results of your survey. So if you're not familiar with how we did the survey, we actually surveyed folks on each of your systems. Norman, the streetcar, and then here in Oklahoma City on the bus system. And really the purpose of it is to give you an objective assessment for who's riding, how well you're meeting their expectations, and to identify opportunities for improvement. We've standardized the survey now. We make a few changes each year, but that way we can show you some of the trends over time. So I'm going to share that with you today. I'm also going to share with you how you stack up to other communities. Next slide shows a little bit about what was actually done. You'll notice that we surveyed altogether 1,432 riders in Oklahoma City. Of those, over 1,200 were conducted on your bus system. 252 were conducted on a streetcar. We included weekends as well. I'm not going to get into the weeds today, but we have a lot of good information about weekday and weekend service. In addition, we surveyed 153 riders on the Norman system. So altogether, it's a very excellent sample. It's large, allows a lot of data to be analyzed at sub-levels. In addition, we prepare a dashboard for you, which allows your staff to essentially go in and actually run their own queries. They don't have to be data analysts to do that. They can actually go online and actually look at a lot of the data. So as far as some of the things that we found, the first thing I want to share are just some of the characteristics of the transit users. So the first slide essentially shows the ages of who's using the system. Thought this was a little interesting, and it really entails to why people are using it, and that gives you a sense for who is using it. You'll take a look at the three systems. Norman is in orange, the Oklahoma City streetcars in dark blue, and then the bus is there in the shaded blue. And what you'll notice is when you look at it, for folks who are under 30, as you might expect in Norman, you have a lot of college students who are using it. So 43% are under 30. You'll also notice that when it comes to the streetcar, you have almost a third of the users are under 30. But when you get to folks who are using the bus, they tend to be more in the middle age groups of 30 to 61, really on all systems, but particularly Oklahoma City bus, because a lot of those people are employed workers in the community who are using the bus to get to and from work. Next slide shows a little bit more about what we learned, particularly when it comes to some of the issues of race. This has become more important in ensuring that environmental justice is maintained for all races and different income levels. And what you'll notice here is that there are really some interesting findings here. The streetcar actually reflects the general population of the city of Oklahoma City for the most part, with the exception of Hispanics, which you will see is lower. If you actually look for the streetcar, the city is 53% white. The actual users are 58%. If you look at the Black and African American, it's 16% for the streetcar, 14% for the city, and all other races are similar. You'll see it's a little bit less for Hispanics, but when it comes to African Americans and whites, it's interesting. The streetcar usage really does reflect the community. You'll notice when it comes to Norman, you can see it's a significantly more white as a percentage of the overall community. But the interesting part about Norman is the high percentage of Asians that are using the system. 24%, you'll see there's 28% in the other group, but 24% of the users in Norman identified themselves as Asian. So interesting just to know who's using it as we go through and do some of the analysis. Next chart shows a little bit more about why people are using it. And one of the things that you'll notice here is the number one reason people use the bus in Oklahoma City is for work-related trips. You'll see it's also a significant number of the folks who are in Norman, not as much for the streetcar. You'll see it's just 8.6% for the streetcar. However, when it comes to social, dining, and entertainment, you'll see that the streetcar has 3 out of 4 people identifying that as the reason for using it. For school, you'll notice for Norman, the number one reason is the university. 30% of those school and other trips reported to be university related. Next slide shows excuse me. That is a typo. I can look at that right now, so thank you for pointing that out. That actually, shopping is definitely Oklahoma City streetcar, and the work is definitely the number one priority but I can see the chart there has actually been reversed. So I'm glad you guys caught it. I'll make sure that when we release that, that's actually corrected. But it is the bus is clearly 40% is the number one reason for work. And the shopping, dining, and entertainment is absolutely the number one reason for the streetcar. So those two legends are actually reversed. So thanks for catching that. The other thing that isn't on this is actually my the final presentation. One slide that's missing here is income. It's okay. So the income, that's why I can tell it's the one slide from the final. The income slide is also interesting. It's not a slide in this presentation, but we added it to the final, which we'll get to you, is the income for streetcar riders. When you actually look at the median income, it lines up. The city's median income is right at, for Oklahoma City, around $56,000, and the median income for people who are using the streetcar is over $50,000. On the other hand, if you look at the median income for the bus users in both Norman and in Oklahoma City, it's actually under $20,000, and only 2.7% of the riders in Oklahoma City on the bus system have incomes above $50,000, and it's only 6.7% of the riders in Norman have incomes above $50,000. So you can really see that the difference in income, that people who are using transit need it, many of them just don't have, or bus service particularly, don't have other options, whereas the streetcar is more widely used by people of all incomes. And so that slide's not in here, but I'll get that to you. Kind of continuing on of the frequency that folks are using the service. One of the things that you'll notice up here at the top is the frequency of bus service, and both Norman and the city of Oklahoma City is very high. More than half of the users are using it on a daily basis, whereas you'll see on the streetcar, about 2 out of 3 people are using it less than once a month. However, the next slide actually shows some of the information that I think is really important to take a look at, and that's that the folks who actually live in downtown Oklahoma City are using it very frequently. You'll notice that of the people, most of the people who are using it, 67.9% who are using the streetcar are visiting the downtown area. However, of the people who live in the downtown area, over 50%, that 51% you see there in the bottom left, they're using the streetcar at least 3 to 4 times per week. So in other words, a lot of the usage that's coming frequently is from people who live in downtown, but it's also attracting a number of visitors. And I think that may be the last characteristic slide, if we go on to the next one. So that's it. So that's kind of what we found. There's a lot more information in here, and I'll make sure you get those updated slides so you can take a look at them a little later along with the income. Next thing is about the satisfaction ratings. This is one of the key reasons you do it, because you want to make sure you're delivering high quality services. And one of the things that you'll notice here is we've broken down the overall satisfaction based on the percentage of people who give 4s and 5s on a 5-point scale. We assess about 16 attributes on Oklahoma City Bus, 15 on Norman's system, and 14 on the streetcar. The ones for the Oklahoma City bus system are listed up here, and you can see they range everything, their ease of paying people's fares down to the courtesy of drivers. And you'll see that all areas rate very well. In fact, when we looked at the trends from the previous year, there really weren't many significant changes. In fact, there were 2 areas that got better. You'll see information has improved for the bus system. It's up 4.9%. from the 2020 survey, and the availability of accessible stops was up a similar amount at 4.6%. So those 2 areas riders have seen improved. 2 areas that decreased were frequency of service and the courtesy of drivers. The good news is the courtesy of drivers is a low-hanging fruit, and I know talking to folks at Embark already, that's something you've already been looking at. So all in all, the ratings are good. The next chart shows the results for the streetcar. These are incredible. People who are using the streetcar have a really good experience. You'll know of the 14 characteristics that were rated, and remember, this is over 200 people rated these. Almost every single area rated over 90%. And what's more important is the percentage that are giving you 5s on a 5-point scale. So people just don't feel good about the streetcar. They feel great when they use it. And you see the biggest challenge is ease of parking, but still almost 9 out of 10 people are giving positive ratings. These are really good signs. In fact, when it comes to the trends, nothing decreased significantly from last year to this year. And there were several significant increases of 4% or more, including the use of the ticketing kiosks that actually went up 10% from the previous year. The ease of using your mobile fare app was up 8.3%. Ease of getting information also up 5.7%. And interestingly, the courtesy, in this case, of your fare inspectors was actually very positive. It was up 5.5%. So not only when I was here last year and previous years, I've always told you how good your rail ratings or your streetcar ratings are. They've gotten even better, which is really great. The last thing I'll share with you here on the overall results for the satisfaction is the Norman bus system. Last year was the first time that we had surveyed it, and things were pretty good last year. They're even better this year. You'll notice of the areas that were assessed, 12 of the 15 improved. And you can see that there were a number of significant improvements, everything from ease of getting information, availability of accessible stops, the COVID safety procedures, safe operation of buses, ease of locating bus stops, and cleanliness of buses all were up 6% or more. The 2 decreases were safety at bus stops and frequency of service. But all in all, again, you can see the ratings are very high. In this case, every area for Norman was at 75% or more, and all but one were above 80%. So great job. So you might say, well, how does this stack up compared to the rest of the nation? Well, this is the new feature this year, is we've actually started doing national surveys like we do for the city survey, so we can compare your performance against the nation. And what you'll see up here are 7 key characteristics of transit service. And you'll see how the Oklahoma City streetcar, the bus, Norman's bus system compare against the national average, which is in green. And you'll see in just about every area, you're not just a little bit above, you're significantly above. Particularly take a look at the streetcar where it's at 90% or above most areas. You'll see the only area that Oklahoma City bus trails in, or any of the things that we assess trail in, are the courtesy of drivers. The fare inspectors actually is significantly above average, but it's the drivers. But all in all, great job. What's even more important is on the next chart. This actually shows the overall satisfaction rating. And what you'll see here is the Oklahoma city streetcar is 39% above the national average with regard to overall satisfaction. The bus is at 20% above the overall national rating and in Oklahoma City. And then the Norman bus rating, you can see, is 32%. So congratulations on rolling out, continually improving your system. Your streetcar's not, and you might remember I was here last year or the year before and told you your system was new, and you were probably going to be at the highest ratings that you've been. The fact that you got better during a crisis, which really a lot of transit agencies struggled with their customer satisfaction during the last couple years, is something you really be commended for. So great job, and this data really shows how you stack up very, very well around the nation. So I know now is when you want to celebrate, which is a great time. If you haven't already broken out the celebration, you should. But let's tell you about some of the things that you can do better. So we're going to transition to opportunities for improvement these next couple slides. One of the things that we ask the riders is what is most important to them of all of the services that you provide. And you'll notice on this chart, this is for the Oklahoma City bus ratings. You'll see at the top of the list is having the buses arrive on time, the availability of accessible stops, frequency of service, courtesy of drivers, and cleanliness of bus shelters. What I consider is a couple of those things are what I call lower cost items. They're things that sometimes just some training or emphasis can make a big difference. And you'll see 2 of those 4 fall really into that category, particularly the drivers and cleanliness. So those are 2 things to think about moving forward, which might be your lower hanging fruit to enhance and improve overall satisfaction. And you'll see that in this next chart, which actually shows the analytics that we do as we look not only how well you're doing, but how important each of the attributes is to your riders. And what you'll notice is buses arriving on time. That's just something that is truly important to riders, especially this group, because your bus riders in Oklahoma City, a lot of them are using them to go to work. In fact, it's the #1 reason your riders are using the bus. You'll see, for the next tier of opportunities, you'll see that of those, 2 of the 5 listed of the top 6 have to do with cleanliness of buses and cleanliness of bus shelters, and then you'll see courtesy of drivers is actually 3rd. So I think there's some opportunities that you can continue to improve your overall ratings for the city of Oklahoma City's bus service. Though there are some expensive things you can do, there are some lower cost things that you can address as well. With that, we'll go on to the next one, which is the streetcar. In the streetcar, you'll see we have 14 attributes that we assessed. There are 3 that really stand out head and shoulders above the others. #1 is making sure they arrive on time. #2 is the cleanliness of stops and platforms. #3 is the frequency of service. And again, the importance of making transit service look clean is actually a major barrier to people using it. So if your downtown streetcar service does not look attractive to people, your visitors are not going to get on it. Good news is your stops and your service looks very good now, but it's going to be important to continue to keep it that way. And when you did the analytics for the streetcar, which is on the next chart, you can see of the top 6 items, frequency of service, arriving on time, those are at the top of the list. And you'll notice that I might point out here, the important satisfaction ratings are extremely low. Thank you. Are very low. What that means is the goal is to improve overall satisfaction. When your satisfaction is almost already 100%, not a lot of room to get much higher. So in many ways, you want to just sustain what you're already doing. But those things at the top of the list are things to particularly pay attention to moving forward. The next set of charts shows the information for Norman, and you'll see for the Norman system, there we go. Of the items that were rated, the top 3 were arriving on time, the availability of bus stops, frequency of service, and then you'll see how safe folks feel round out the top 4. So when we did the analytics for Norman, you'll notice on the next chart, the items that were at the top of the list. Again, not a lot of surprises here, and the important satisfaction ratings are very low because overall satisfaction with the system is very high. But you will see the cleanliness of buses is the 5th most important, the 5th highest rated IS rating, and ease of getting service information also made the top 6. So continued emphasizing those areas will be important. So with all of that said, there were a few other things that we took a look at this year that I thought I'd share with you. The first one has to do with whether or not people are using your apps. That's one of the things that you've been developing and trying to encourage people to use. And what you'll find out from this year's survey is the transit app has nearly doubled from 13% to 21% just in the last year. The use of embarkok.com, you can see also has significantly increased from 29 to 44%. And this is among your bus riders. 23 Ride is down, but you'll notice the Move It app has actually more than quadrupled the number of people who report using it from 2%, and again, this is bus riders, to 9%. Next chart shows some of the other information we've learned from Oklahoma City bus riders is just the number of transfers. This is something we've looked at for many years now. You'll see that fewer than 1 in 5 reported 0 transfers, and the way your system is designed, most people are going to take at least 1 transfer, but you'll notice that nearly half of the folks are still taking 2 or more transfers. That's probably one of the reasons a lot of the people who are using it are your lower income, don't have choices but need to get to work. So it becomes a vital service for them, but the number of transit or transfers that are required is one of the deterrents for people who perhaps have more what we might call choice riders and can use other types of services or have cars available to them. The next chart shows some information we learned for streetcar riders, and this is where they park. And one of the things that we were asking people, of the people who come down there, 60% are coming and parking and then using the service. You'll see that only 39%, so 6 out of 10 people are parking a car, and you can see it's mixed between being on the street, private garages, or public parking garages. But again, the key thing here is that 6 out of 10 folks are visitors. They're coming by car initially and then accessing the service. Last couple things that we found here is whether or not what their interest in expanding streetcar. This again among your streetcar current users. This doesn't necessarily mean what people who aren't using it would be interested in. But of your current users, you can see the orange is from last year, 2020, the blue is 2021, and you can see the number 1 choice is Uptown, was actually in the first position last year. It actually grew this year as far as the interest in it. The overall ranking changed a little bit between the Plaza District and Capitol Hill, where Plaza's a little more interest this year versus Capitol Hill. And then you can see the other OUHSC is about the same. And I think with that, that leads us to the summary. And my neck has not broken going back up or down, but I'm glad I got a drink in between there. But just I want to come back and just share with you, one of the reasons I think you all know this is so important is that your system changes as you add routes, as you expand service to new areas. You need to know who's riding it. And the survey is one of the best ways to really track and understand who those riders are so you can serve them better. Second, it gives you a great opportunity to truly understand how well you're delivering services. And really, you must celebrate the fact that you're doing so well. I mean, this last year we have done a lot of satisfaction surveys for transit systems around the country, and most have seen decreases, if not significant decreases, just because of all the challenges of COVID. The fact that you actually have gone up from the 2020, which was early COVID, to then the middle and the end of COVID, which is where a lot of people were really getting the pressures and seeing the decreases, has gone against the national trends. And you're ending up 39% above the national average with your streetcar ratings, 20% with the Oklahoma City bus ratings, and 32% above the national average with the Norman bus ratings. So great great job. In addition, overall, as I mentioned, the trends are very, very good in most areas. The Oklahoma City bus, the one opportunity there really nationally is with your drivers. And I think that's one of the things that Jason and I even talked about before. I think remember, it's been about 5 or 6 months since we did this survey. So one of the things is a lot of things have already been being done to address some of the things that we're just now reporting to you, but the Embark's had this data for a couple months and is already using it. So with that, I might stop and apologize for all of the challenges with the noise today and my neck going up and down, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions. So Chris, I'd like to hear about when you're reporting to us about national average, I presume that you're just reporting on systems that you have also surveyed with ETC. So can you give me some ideas about what bus systems and then what streetcar systems we're comparing to with those national averages?
Actually, it's a national survey that we do of about 2,000 riders. So it's actually similar to well, in the past, we've had head-to-head comparisons where we could compare you to DART and Des Moines or DART and Dallas or the KCATA. That's what we used to have, but I never presented it as being the national average because it was just a collection of agencies we'd work for. Now this year, we did for the first time a true national survey of transit agencies from across the country. So it includes data from large systems, medium systems, and small systems. And we actually have the breakouts for those different sizes, but it's representative really of almost every transit system in the country, both rural and urban, large and small. And we've designed it so we can actually have a good benchmark in the same way when we present results for satisfaction with street maintenance or overall satisfaction with parks. That isn't a result from all the cities that did the survey. It's actually the result from a different national survey. And the reason we've done that is we found out that if we only include people who do surveys, it's not really a national average because folks who do surveys tend to have better results because they care and they tend to be customer oriented. And so if we figured that out a long time ago with our community surveys is when we were presenting the average of the communities that did the surveys, it didn't seem to be representative because the higher performers were more likely to care about their customers. And so, yeah, so this is actually it's a new national survey that we just completed this spring.
Thank you.
When you do your surveys, do you ever consider fare box or fares?
In what?
Charges for using the service, the fare box or?
I don't think we've included that question. There's not, are you asking about their preferences for paying?
Or in the national average or something, you know?
No, we haven't included a question like that in our national survey, but those are things that we're going to work with our partners for next year's national survey. So if there's some interest in getting some data about preferences for paying, we could probably ask that next year.
Well, I think it'd be kind of interesting what the fares that we charge compared to comparable cities.
Oh, I see what you mean. So yeah, we don't have any, like overall satisfaction with the fare. We have not asked that on our national average. We have asked how people pay, but we haven't really focused too much on overall satisfaction with what people are charged.
Any other questions? All right, Chris, thank you.
All right, thanks for having me here. Good to see you all.
A lot of information here.
And I'll forward to the actual final. It may not be on that flash drive if you've got the different version, so, okay.
All right, do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, our next item is approval of our May 20th COPTA board meeting. Any changes or additions or deletions by any of the trustees? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our minutes. It's been moved and seconded and motion approved. All right, our consent docket. Any particular items on there that the trustees would like a discussion on? They're all pretty much straightforward to know what they are. Then if there's no questions, I'd have a motion to approve our consent docket. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, individual consideration. It's our interlocal service agreement with the city of Norman for provisions of our transportation service. And I asked Jason, I said, how long have we done it? He said, maybe 4 years. And I said, surely it hadn't been 4 years.
We are coming up on our 4th year,
Okay.
believe it or not. I know.
All right, so if you'd like to
Yeah, sure.
visit that item.
Would love to share a few words about this. So yeah, as the chairman had indicated, this is actually our 4th contract with the city of Norman to provide transit service. And you know, I know that we as staff, we truly appreciate our partnership with the city of Norman and consider it really to be, you know, a privilege as a transit provider to be able to provide bus service, not just for Oklahoma City residents and some of the residents of other partnering communities, but yes, all the way even into Norman. And so just a little bit of a refresher on this contract. It's an interlocal service agreement, and what we negotiate with the city of Norman is, you know, basically ensuring that we have full cost recovery of the costs associated with providing that service, plus about an 11% markup to those costs in order to cover various overhead costs that are just associated with administering the contract, supervising the employees, those kinds of things. So when you look at the contract amount there of $3.5 million, keep in mind that is assuming like all the positions that we plan to recover costs for are filled throughout the entire year, and we know that generally doesn't happen. So I would almost look at this as a not to exceed amount. So again, just a refresher to the trustees, we'll actually invoice Norman for actual expenses, which typically come in a little bit less than the amount that is approved, if for nothing else, vacancies and so forth. So just a little bit of technical background on that. So this is for 1 year. And then the final thing I wanted to mention too is, you know, again, I'm not sure if all the trustees are aware, but Norman, the city of Norman, is actually the only city I'm aware of anyway that has a dedicated tax to fund public transit. And so things like this are possible, right, when you have dedicated funding sources, and Norman has certainly leveraged that. So, and then finally, you know, with those resources, they've added service. So we've added some service over the last 4 years, and then with this contract, we are also assuming the duties of cleaning and fueling the buses. So we kind of continue to expand our scope, if you will, there with that Norman service. I would like to point out that we have Taylor Johnson. He's the Director of Public Transportation for the City of Norman here with us, and I think he'd like to say a few words to the trust, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
One question before he gets up there. Dedicated tax, is it a dedicated sales tax or? No?
Yeah, they have a dedicated sales tax to fund public transit.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Board, for having me come speak up here this morning on this item. It is a dedicated sales tax. It's a 1/8% sales tax that just
How
goes
much?
to a 1/8%. It was fueled out of desperation, if I could say that. I'll just speak to a little bit of the background. It has been 3 years, and it feels much longer than that. But this partnership really was birthed out of the transition from the university to the city of Norman of the city transit service. We were given 8 months to figure that out, and one of the main reasons we were able to do that is our partnership with Embark is majorly instrumental in getting us on that July 1, 2019 date of providing service, which we did not lose a day of service either, and that's in large part to you all for approving that first agreement, and for Jason and his team for putting it together. Just to speak a little bit more about the dedicated sales tax, there was a 1/4 cent going offline that the county had, Cleveland County, and they were going to ask the voters for half of that, or 1/8%. So the rest of the cities in the county were given an opportunity, I would say, to ask the voters for something else, and our city council decided to put that 8% on the ballot. Just about 4 months into us operating the transit system, again, out of desperation to ensure we kept the same levels of service that the university provided, because we did not have the funding to provide that. So we're very happy that the voters approved that. It was 72%, which we're very happy with, approval rating. 50 plus 1 is always the goal. 60% is a good benchmark, but we were very ecstatic with the 72% passage. So Norman residents overwhelmingly approve of public transit, I would say, and we're very happy with the presentation about the riders and how satisfied they are with the service as well. Just a few more comments I would like to say. Not only have we celebrated not having a loss of service because of this agreement initially, but we've also completed some major milestones the last 3 years. We've been able to complete an update to our transit long-range plan, which we are in full swing of implementing. We've bought property in downtown to renovate into a transit center. We currently use the university's Brook Street transfer station, and it's just east of the football stadium. And that is the last piece of the puzzle to completely become a self-operating entity, I would say, separate from the university. We opened up our maintenance and operations facility this past February. We were able to design, fund, and build an $8 million facility in 2.5 years. Again, thanks to Norman voters and city council for doing that. And for the CARES Act money that we were appropriated, we were able to get that building funded and built. And then lastly, I'd just like to harp on our long-range plan and the implementation of that. My goal is to hopefully have some major route changes, not this upcoming fiscal year with this agreement, but hopefully the next year. We, again, have to renovate that property into a new transit center, have to add bus stops and change things, which you all are aware of, the big lift it is to change routes. But we are fundamentally changing our routes. Every single route will be modified, especially as we move the transit center, if that makes sense. And lastly, I just want to voice my appreciation for Jason and Jesse Rush's leadership as my point of contact for Embark, and the various managers that you see here and that aren't seen, Michael, Dennis Fry. They all have a hand in this and making sure it's possible that we provide this service at such a high level. And then the employees on the front lines that I see every day in our offices, the supervisors and the bus drivers that I am friends with, that I knew before the transition, that came from OU. I'm happy to still be around them. And we truly see them as extensions of city staff, as family. Most recently, I'll just give you an example. We had a soft opening for the summer of our Westwood Aquatic Center. And the city was happy to extend the soft opening for city employees over to the Embark employees and have them join us if they wanted to with their families. So any opportunity that we have that we celebrate the city employees, we also include Embark, just because, again, you guys are extensions of us and we see you all as family. And with that, I'm happy to answer any more questions if you have about Norman's service. Otherwise, I appreciate your partnership.
I would hope that you're a real advocate on the Regional Transit Authority, since that's kind of what was always behind the scenes when this was established, is to provide service within the region. And,
right.
And,
yeah, I attend every meeting of the RTA, coordinate with Jason and his staff. And also on that, I would like to mention, I think the Oklahoma City City Council passed a resolution of support for the Amtrak service extension, just another piece of the puzzle, right? And the city of Norman did that recently in May. But yes, we are very aware of all the pieces of the puzzle and trying to stay, honestly, stay up lockstep with it. There's a lot of movement in transit, from your BRT route to our route changes to the possible addition of Amtrak and RTA service. There's almost too much to keep track of, and that's for us that work in the world, right? So it's a good, exciting time to be a part of transit in Central Oklahoma.
it is, and I mean, we've got a real opportunity with the RTA and with Norman's help, since that's kind of the beginning, to me, is one of the first beginnings of a regional transit.
Right.
You know, so. You got your hand on the button like you want to
No,
talk.
I'm good. Just in case a question came my way.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Any
again.
other questions by any of the trustees? All right, thank you. All right, I would have a motion to approve item A. It's been moved and seconded and approved, thank you. Item B, Susan's going to give us a report on both of them, the resolution adopting the budget and the capital improvements, so.
Well, good morning. I'm Suzanne Wickenkamp, the Assistant Director of Administration. So I'm pleased to speak with you about item 6B, which is our fiscal year 23 operating budget. Oh,
Yeah,
microphone
get it
check. I'm not
closer.
as
Yeah, there you
tall
go.
as our prior presenter. Is that better?
Yeah,
All right. So I'll be speaking to you about item 6B, which is adoption of our fiscal year 23 operating budget, as well as item 6C, which is our 5-year capital improvement plan. So the operating budget that's presented to the trust for consideration today has been presented to our Finance Committee on March 29th, and they recommended the budget to the trust today. So that budget is just over $54 million, which is a $5.2 million or 11% increase from the current amended budget. The growth in the operating budget is a result of increase to our same service level costs. And also, I wanted to point out, it's due to some increases in costs with streetcar, the maintenance, safety, and operations. And it also, of course, includes cost for startup for the bus rapid transit in fiscal year 23. So that bus rapid transit startup costs alone are about $2 million in our budget and includes 27 new positions. So since the Finance Committee met on March 29th, the City Manager's Office as well as the Budget Office have finalized the general fund budget. And so there were a few modifications to our budget since we last presented to the Finance Committee. So I wanted to point those out to you all. The budget for fund balance was reduced by $641,000. And our general fund and grant revenues were increased to offset that balance. The other noteworthy change is for streetcar operations, and with that, the general fund increased by $740,000, and that was primarily due to increases in maintenance, safety costs, and also some city chargebacks. So that's the kind of general summary of our fiscal year 23 budget, and I'd like to move to item 6C and give you a summary of our capital improvement plan. So as you know, the trust approves our CIP every year. We update it and provide that to you. So the overall capital plan is $64.8 million and is funded primarily through our federal grants, GO bonds, and capital reserves. So not surprising, the largest project on our CIP is the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit. And you'll notice that the COTPAS funding expected amounts are included in our CIP. There are other local city funds that are contributing to this project, but of course we don't have them on COTPAS CIP. So not going into all the detail of the plan, as we've presented it to the committee, your memo does provide a general summary of river and transit and parking CIP. And then of course included in your packet is a worksheet that lines out every project that's included in the capital improvement plan. You'll see the amounts by year and by funding source that we anticipate expending. And then at the bottom of the CIP, you'll see a summary of funding by source and by year. So that gives you a good idea of the totals for our funding sources. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
you make mention, and Jason reminded me this morning, the American Rescue Plan did not reduce our transfer from the general fund, but that money, thanks to city staff, is going into our reserve fund.
Yes, our budgeted amount for American Rescue Plan is $435,000. We have not budgeted the full amount in 23, so.
So thank you, Laura, for,
No problem.
no, just a drop in the bucket. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll have to vote on B and C separately, but is there a motion to approve item B? It's been moved and seconded, and it passes. So, and then item C is the capital improvement plan. So we have a motion to approve item D, or item C, excuse me. It's been moved and seconded, motion passes. All right, item D is parking agreement with Griffin Communication for 178 dedicated parking spaces. Oh,
Good morning.
where'd you come from?
This is a 10-year parking agreement with Griffin Communications at the Century Center Garage. They will be, the agreement includes them having full access to the underground parking floor number 2, bottom parking floor, and then 5 additional parking spaces on the roof for condenser equipment for their technology. Year 1 is a revenue value of $146,000 plus, and every year it escalates 5.84%. It also includes a possible extension of another 10 years.
On the roof, I tried to look at the exhibits, and I can't tell exactly how many spaces did that? 5? Looks like it'd be more than that, as big as as your map is.
Trust me, I went up there and counted.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, you know, when you develop public parking in a downtown, this is what it's about. It's about getting new jobs, new employers, new people into our downtown. And so this is a really exciting time, especially post-pandemic, when we couldn't be sure that people were coming back downtown to work. This is really, really an exciting development.
That is. And believe me, we're happy to have Griffin downtown. I think it'll be a big boost. All right. Any other questions of Corey? All right, thank you. Then I have a motion to approve item D. It's been moved and seconded, and all in favor, motion passes. All right, next item is ratification of payroll and vendor claims. We don't usually have any questions on that, but if any of the trustees have looked through that and find an item that they'd like discussed. If not, then I'd have a motion to approve. Been moved and seconded, and motion passes. All right, our financial reports. Susan gonna do this, or you gonna? Suzanne, excuse me.
That's okay. I get that a lot, believe it or not. All right, so as you can see now, I'm going to be presenting our financials. It's a little change in pace. I know you all have come to rely on Jason, keeping this very riveting and informative for you, so I surely hope to measure up to the standard he has set of riveting financial information. So that's my goal today. All right, so in your packet, your finance report starting on page 2, that's our transportation operations financials. This carries us through April 30th of this fiscal year, 10 months of the fiscal year. So overall, you'll notice on the total revenue line, we have collected $29 million in revenue, and our expenditures are just over $27 million, leaving us with an operating income of $2 million year to date. So on the revenues, this month you'll see it's actually 10 lines down, so right almost dead center, a new line item that's the American Rescue Plan. So as mentioned last month, we wanted to call this out for you so you could see how much we've drawn on that grant. And just as another reminder, the FTA has strongly encouraged agencies to expend the ARP funds as expediently as possible. So what you see here is the month of March and April draws, and of course we'll continue to draw in May and June. And so in pulling that item out, of course our federal grants, there's a negative variance of $1.3 million, and also CARES is about where we expect it to be. So those 3 items there I wanted to call attention to. I also thought I'd point out the city general fund subsidy shows a negative variance of $1.2 million. But I do want to assure you that we intend to collect the entire amount of subsidy this fiscal year and are optimistic that we'll be able to put some of that in reserves. On the expenditure side, you'll see that supplies and fuel are just a little bit over budget. However, we do anticipate being able to stay within budget for the fiscal year. We've actually put some of that budget in our month of June, just kind of anticipating a conservative approach to our fuel costs. So we have no concerns with being able to finish this year's budget within budget. So if you'll turn in your packets, binders, however you have that document in front of you, to page 4, that's our parking operations. And this is going to be a similar story that Jason has told in the past around this great rebound for parking revenues. So the overall collection year-to-date is just shy of $5 million. Our expenditures are at $3.3 million, leaving an operating income of $1.65 million. So as you see here, and we've seen in previous months, our revenues continue to exceed what was budgeted, and our expenses continue to be below what was budgeted. And I'll have you flip over to page 7, if you will, which is our streetcar operations. Just a couple of things to point out here. Our expenditures, you'll see that the streetcar operations and supply line items show a negative variance. However, we are anticipating $247,000 credit from the MAPS office for spare parts. And so with that, that'll show up in we're anticipating that'll show up in our May financials, so next month. So with that, we do anticipate ending this fiscal year within budget on the streetcar. I would love to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions? All right.
Does anyone have chills with the report? That was my goal. I was aiming for chills, but.
It was riveting. I was chilled when I came in here, so I.
Oh, not so much from the report.
Died, yeah.
Well, in your
All right.
position, you got to be cold-hearted anyway. So. All right. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the item? And we do, and the motion passes. All right. I guess we've got one program report, marketing and technology. Morning.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Well, good morning. Suzanne, I got chills as well, so I appreciate you setting the stage and the bar so high. Well, I want to take just an opportunity to update you on what's been going on in marketing and IT. It's been a few months. In fact, it's last September, I think, before I got to present to you. So we've had a lot of developments, but I am going to focus on something that happened last week, and you may have heard about it, but I look forward to sharing those with you. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to take a moment to share just a few items about IT. I don't have a slide or anything prepared for that yet, but what we do have going on are 2 significant procurements, and those procurements are going to impact the customer experience for our bus rapid transit and ultimately our other service modes as well, such as streetcar and bus. And that procurement is for our, what they call CAD AVL. And so that's the computer-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle location. And that will allow us to better manage our systems, such as the streetcar, and it also will tie into the TSP, or the traffic signal prioritization system, that we are going to rely on to help keep our service reliable and on time, right? And so with that, we are in the negotiation process now for that contract. And we're very impressed with the turnout that we had. Very quality candidates come in. I really want to just express appreciation for Lisa Hubble and her efforts with the procurement. It's a big task, but we couldn't do it without her. I also want to mention the other procurement that we have going on is for what we call mobility data management. And kind of like what you saw with Chris earlier, and so many different moving components regarding to our customer experience, from technology to the services that we're providing, the ridership counting, all of those things produce data. And that data is something that we're going to use to help us better support and enhance the customer experience. And so this mobility data management is going to be our centralized CPU, for lack of a better word, kind of an engine that will power an enhanced experience for our journey planning on our website. And that enhanced experience means that we're now going to be able to plan trips using all of our modes in one trip planner. And this will also serve as a regional trip planner so that if the city of Edmond wants to give us the keys to that data of their system, we can plug that in. And so you could theoretically plan a trip all the way from the city of Norman, all the way up to city of Edmond using one trip planner and experience. So if you've ever visited other cities and you want to use transit and you have multiple jurisdictions, it can get a little complicated and a little challenging to plan those trips. The goal here is to create a seamless and easy-to-use system, and so this is what that procurement will help us with. Before I go any further or jump into anything else, if you had any questions about that, I'd love to take a shot at it. All right, well, I know you heard a lot about customer metrics earlier, and so I'm just going to touch on just a few. We always really thrive on, in our department, metrics and this data that we have. And so everyone we serve each day and every day are really at the heart of what we do. And without them, our customers, we wouldn't be here. So I'm grateful for the partnership that ETC, has been with not only Embark, but the city of Oklahoma City. They have really helped us arrive where we are today because we've had quality data and input. Now, this last year, we partnered with another agency to really enhance that amount of data that we've received, but also understanding and insights. And so AlphaView, and this is just taking a snapshot, again, allows us to quantify, that qualitative data that we get all the time. If you've ever heard of social media, you know that we're getting feedback in some form or fashion, whether social media, customer inquiries through our website or emails. And this takes a look at all of that information and helps us understand what's the overall sentiment of the customers and or those who we interact with. So since humans express our thoughts and feelings more openly than ever before, sentiment analysis is one of the most advancing or quickly advancing tools, and it's essential because it allows us to monitor and understand sentiments of all types of data. And so before, marketing always struggled for a long time if there wasn't direct sales involved, how to measure whether we're doing a good job or not, or our campaigns or those things really, the best way to use our time and or resources. And so this is one more tool that helps us, again, quantify that qualitative information. And what you see up here is just a small portion of the data that's been collected since we started last year, but this is just representative of the calendar year from January 1 of this year up until the 1st of May. And what you'll see as we continue our journey with the roadmap, and you heard us talk about at the board retreat, the insights will help staff better develop campaigns that will enhance the status and use and understanding of our services. And again, we don't want to take just these efforts and as if we're kind of wandering in the dark. We want to use this data to help us make really strategic decisions. So with AlphaView, we'll be able to better target messaging to current. And these are also lapsed. You heard Chris talk about people who maybe stopped using and are now using again, and then even potential riders. So we'll look at the next slide here. In addition to monitoring our online presence and our social media and our customer-facing interactions, AlphaView provides a 1 to 10 question short survey every month. And their baseline is to try to capture at least 100 responses of people who don't use our service and some who do. And this are standard questions, and this is one where back in April, we decided to look at, how our gas prices may be impacting people's perception about transit and whether or not it might influence their willingness to use it. And it does cut off there. So the first one is if the average gas price was $1 more, and then just go up. Average price is $2 more, and up to $3, and then more than $3. So I apologize that didn't come through very easily. And at the time that they took this survey in April, the average gas price is $3.79. We know that it's much higher today, right? So here's what we've learned. 49% of the non-riders said they would consider riding transit if gas prices were $1 or more than the $3.79. 69% elapsed riders. These are riders who identify, or people that had identified that I had ridden, but I'm not riding now. 69% said they would consider riding if prices rose another $1. And among our respondents who said that they would consider transit, there was a slight skew toward lower income households, but also some including high income households. So what's kind of fascinating now is like, what's that group in the middle? And that's who makes up primarily those who said, I will continue driving. And that's those mostly are right smack dab in the middle of that kind of our median income levels in the Oklahoma City area. So how do we use this? And so this will help us craft messages better, set better expectations of how many people we can convince to use our services. And this will help us, again, tailor what we do around the data that we're seeing. Before I move on, any questions kind of about this customer sentiment data?
So Michael, I am curious on the previous slide about the bicycle question or sentiment. What is that? Is that like using your bicycle and riding the bus? Is that bike lanes? Is that spokies? What is that?
Great question. So this is really a snapshot of a dashboard, and that little section right there is looking at topics. So the topic of just cycling and bicycling, anytime that's paired with Embark and or within a community. So we can break this down. This is looking at all of our channels, including Streetcar, Spokies, Embark, all of our social media, all of those email attributes, and it's kind of summarizing it there. So as we tease out that data more, we can look at and get closer to that question that you have about like what specifically is it saying. But what we're seeing here, the blue is representative of that positive sentiment, and so we're seeing good comments for the most part about that topic. But those are right there were for the first part through April. Those were the kind of the 5 areas we said, hey, we want to know, what's the temperature out there for those topics.
Okay.
And we'll see COVID transition off coming up in the future, and we're going to be moving BRT to the forefront there.
Thank you.
All right, well, one of the things, beautiful aspects about our jobs in marketing is that we get to engage and with a lot of different audiences because we are a multimodal system. And what you saw with Chris, even just on the dynamics between the city of Norman and the city of Oklahoma City and our other communities, there's a difference in who uses our services. And we also know that's true in regards to our modes. There's a very different demographic. And so our vision is to create a transportation system that we all want to access. And the new e-bikes have taken us one step closer to that because there is a very specific audience who's very interested in seeing more options in this area. The photo on the bottom right shows where we were participating in the community event Bike Fest that ACOG puts on annually. We had a fantastic time there, and it was really the opening weekend for our e-bikes. And so we had a very captive audience of people who already loved to cycle, and it was great to see how encouraging they were just about how we're continuing to expand cycling options, not only just within our city, but as a transit option. And so this is something that we just continue to focus on, especially as in our mission and our vision is really to create that accessibility and those options for as many people as possible. And these events are excellent opportunities also to exhibit our core value of being there. And definitely our opportunity to continue to enhance the status, use, and understanding of our services. Now, the feedback we've heard on social media and in person since at different events was that, this is also an improvement to the experience overall of Spokies. The app is easier to use, they understand it more, and they also liked how it was just overall simplified from our previous provider. So I want to just commend Josh and his team for and partners at Drop Mobility and the effort they've done. They've spent a lot of time there. And I don't want to get locked into a parking garage. I know Corey was also a big part of that and getting that done. And so I'm grateful that we, again, have been had a chance to be just a small part of that. So I'm going to show you just a real quick glimpse of that Bike Fest and kind of get to see some of Lloyd's work. Speaking of our newest transit mode, with the rapid vehicle reveal last week, we had a fantastic day last Thursday, May 26th, and I think it was just enhanced further. I don't know if it'll let you go. Yeah, you go. It was even further enhanced, I think, by the use of the OKC Convention Center. So not only was it an opportunity to show off our vehicles and our staff, but also that fantastic facility. And I also want to mention, this was Jesse's vision on including all the vehicles and having the showcase. And I think it was a fantastic idea, and so glad we were able to execute on it. From 10 to 11 a.m., we had somewhat of an unveiling ceremony, and that we had public transit stakeholders that opened up the event, and we had speakers. Vice Chair Sempner was there and able to speak with us, as well as Jason and the Mayor Holt. We're grateful for all of that and for all of the other elected officials that participated and came. We really did enjoy the opportunity just to, again, talk about transit and put transit at the focus for at least an hour of everything else that we were talking about. And it really was a showcase, if not of the vehicle, but of all the work of our employees. They work on this every day. They make sure that these are on the street, and they do it in such a graceful way. We're so grateful for all the work they've done. We had a little over 100 guests for that morning event, and we had even more that afternoon. Here you just see a short kind of glimpse of preliminary report of the amount of story coverage and the impressions we had on social media. And for those of you that were able to attend, we are really grateful for that. You helped to make the day very special. And as you saw or will see, the event was fantastic. And it's not because anything I did, for sure, but Dennis Fry and his maintenance team, they delivered white glove service. It was truly the epitome of world class. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that they made putting on this event so effortless because of all the work they put into it. They were planning, and if you know Dennis, and if you haven't gotten to, you'll know that he can engineer just about anything. This guy is remarkable in that regard. And he had really a top-level team there making sure everything was just handled. It was flawless because of that. Now, the person on my team that did most of the heavy lifting, I don't want to leave her out, Megan Henderson. Her event planning prowess was definitely on display. And then we had Lloyd and Taishika. They always come in right behind anything I do or Megan does, and makes it look just fantastic. So they put on the final touches there. And of course, we had volunteers making it happen, and that's every person in our division or our department was represented there, and they were interacting with not only you, but our customers and potential customers. So I just want to, again, commend them for that, because this is just a rare opportunity to have transit at the focus and top of mind, just even for a small time sometimes. So with that, I'm going to show you a quick little video of the event, if you didn't get to see that.
We are thrilled to have you guys here this morning to share with us in the reveal of our new rapid transit vehicle.
And it's just going to change the way people think, about transportation in our community, especially in that area?
3, 2, 1.
It is a high frequency, convenient form of transportation.
With public transit, where public transit goes, communities grow. And there are a lot of employers and a lot of rooftops along this corridor. And so we're just really excited about the possibilities of that.
Just a couple of more shots that Lloyd took and captured is just really want to focus in on that high quality interior finishes that we've got going on. I can't tell you how many comments I received, and I'm sure others did too, about just how impressed they were with the high back and the enhanced seating options that we have, and just this really is an opportunity to elevate public transit and to also a great introduction to a part of our city that really hasn't had the opportunity to experience public transit like it's going to next fall. Another item that we revealed at the launch last week was our rendering of the Northwest 50th or Northwest Expressway. And just one second. Well, go ahead. It's all right. Go. So one of the questions we get a lot of times with BRT is like, how are you going to make it stay on time? This area is so congested sometimes, or there's so much traffic. And so this is a good animation or a way to help demonstrate how TSP and how jump queue lanes will work. So you'll continue to see us work on those. And I want to commend also Skyline Inc., a local company who helped put this together. Education is extremely important in helping people understand how to use our services. And then quickly here, we took the opportunity and they took advantage of having the convention center. And so we're working on a commercial now that will help promote the upcoming service of Bus Rapid Transit, the Rapid. And you'll be seeing that later this month, maybe 1st of July. And we look forward to sharing that with you. This is just a few shots of that production there. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. And also just want to quickly mention that we have half-price ferry service going on Wednesdays for the river cruises, and they've got a season full of a variety of different cruises and opportunities for you to really get out and enjoy that part of our city. And of course, Spokie's electric bike, I know just with that Bike Fest video, you got chills and warm and fuzzies. You want to get out there, and with the electric bikes, you only have to break a sweat. I mean, come on, it's going to do most of the work for you. And if you're like me, not breaking a sweat's a big deal, because otherwise it's not a good look. So, and we will be out there again on June 14th for the next full moon bike ride, and it's a strawberry moon, so don't miss that opportunity there. And then we also have the half price sale coming up July 1st through 9th. So we're really thankful that you continue to allow us to offer this to our customers, because this is also one way that we continue to make transit accessible, especially for those who have limited incomes. So this is one more effort towards that end. And then finally, our Third Friday free program is underway. And, the whole point of this is to help promote our air quality. And one thing that we can do is just, we're not asking you to make a major life change, but just once a month, leave your car at home and let us do the driving. So again, thank you for this time this morning. I appreciate it.
All right, my mic on? We have a motion to receive the program report. It's been moved and seconded.
We don't have screens to vote. I vote yes.
I vote yes. Yeah, all right. Motion passes. All right, thank you. Any items from any of the trustees?
No, I'll echo the sentiments that Michael mentioned about the rapid vehicle reveal this last week. It was a great event, and the staff really did a great job in presenting it. If you walked into the convention center room, your eyes had to adjust to the low lights, except for the spotlights on not only the hidden vehicle, but also our other CNG bus, electric bus, paratransit vehicles, and it was great. The floor is so new and so slick and reflective that not only did the spotlight reflect on them or show the buses, it reflected on the floor in front of them. So it was really an awesome experience that we really appreciate. So anyway, congratulations.
Well, I appreciate you representing the trust, Barney. I appreciate it, so, all right.
Mr. Chairman, can I say a few words?
Yes, you can.
I haven't got to say anything today, but I did want to make mention that we are providing a special express bus route between downtown and essentially the Softball Hall of Fame for the Softball World Series. And Trustee Sepner had some questions about that, and so I just wanted to make sure the trust knew that we were providing that special service. It's open to the public. We charge a fare, but it is a special express route. And we'll bring something back to the trust in July, either via a special report on how that service went, or perhaps even an official item. But I just wanted to make sure the trustees were aware of that, and we will let you know the results of that next month. And
Does it go to several of the hotels or just one, or?
it starts at the downtown convention center,
Oh,
and just
okay.
single stop then at the end of the line
okay.
at the World Series. So, and then also wanted to recognize we have an elected official with us this morning. Representative Forrest Bennett is here. As you know, he is an incredible supporter of public transit, was also at our reveal event, and anytime we get an elected official from the state here, we certainly want to recognize. So thank you for being here.
All right, then I guess we're adjourned. Thank you for everybody for coming, and